So my name is Calvin. I'm on the design team, and the game we're presenting today will be called Eidol Master. So the objective of the game is for the player to choose one of the Eidolons from these four basic body types: humanoids, like an orc or a gnoll; slimes, like a slime; quadrupeds, like a dog or a cat; and bipeds, like a raptor or a T-Rex. And so when you pick one, you will immediately go into the adaptation screen, which is the core mechanic of this game, which is to evolve your Eidolons through battle, through taking care of them, basically. And then as they increase their stats, as they get more points put into them, they'll unlock different adaptations. For instance, the picture is of a slime who then got enough points in attack to get sharp teeth. All of the adaptations would be stat-based. For instance, high defense would be growing armor, high speed would be wings. Then there would also be, but then they would lock out other ones. Like if you have armor, you can't have wings because you're too heavy to fly. Some of the adaptations would also be specific to the body types. For instance, slimes would get tentacles, the humanoids would get the armor, and like the quadrupeds would get like spikes and plates on them to defend. And they would also change the sprite. So if you were to pick the wings would appear on the sprite and all that. And then the battle system would be traditional Pokemon, where you summon your Eidolon, it shimmies on, it does its little bounce, and then they summon theirs, it does their little bounce. And then you pick from the abilities, of which the adaptations are your abilities. And so after each fight, if you win, you gain stat points that you can then put into the three stats: attack, defense, and speed. And if you lose, you will begin a timer. This timer is basically a death timer. You will have 10 losses before your Eidolon disappears. They are fickle creatures. They don't want to be with someone who leads them to losing. So if you're bad, they will cease to exist. They will get progressively more depressed until they cease to exist. So after battle, but win or lose, you'll enter limbo. Limbo is this is where you'll see your effect on your Eidolon. You will see, in the beginning, you'll see, for instance, this is like a base slime. It's an item like this, so we're going to have to use something else, but a base slime, and you can see it just kind of sit there doing a little idle animation. And you see the three stats, and then there's a hidden stat that the player can't see, which is favor, which is gained when you win a battle. You get +1 in the stat. At 5 or more, however much we decide in the design team, you will have a different animation in Limbo for the Eidolon. For instance, the slime will just kind of start to wiggle. He's happy that you are not screwing up every single fight. He's getting to beat things. If you get -3 in the stat or lower, he becomes a puddle and just kind of sighs every so often. And in this screen, we would also have, when enough stat points are dumped into the Eidolon, you have your adaptation screen, which would come up, and then you would select that, and then you could immediately see the effect it has on the Eidolon. That's pretty much it.
This is a lot of stuff.
So I know one concern brought up during the meeting was like the changing of the sprites, and how I plan to address that was that each body type would have a base sprite that wouldn't change very much, but then we would have like drag and drop things where, like, for instance, the teeth would just go over to a set place on the slime, for instance, and that would just be, the asset would just go on top of the other.
So
Right,
in order
that's
for that to
a lot of.
go, yeah, you'd have to have like a point that it knows to attach to, which would have to be know where to move when the sprite moves and all that stuff.
And that's for every animation you're talking about. Every time you
Yeah.
said if in that and said then this will happen, that's another animation you're adding on. So just kind of trying to keep that in mind. And you have 4 separate classes. I'm thinking if you were willing to change this so it would just be the slimes or something, that might be doable.
Like the slime rollers or something.
Yeah, just like building up slimes, because if you have all of those animations that have to change as well as those 4 classes, it has to quadruple those animations.
We can definitely start down with classes for sure.
Yeah.
Who do you battle against? Is it AI or another
It
player?
would be AI, which I've been confirmed like that is, it's doable.
Two questions. One, what is an Eidolon?
So an Eidolon is a D&D term for something you summon from another realm, basically.
And number two, what do you do outside of battle? Is there an overworld? Do you just battle?
So in terms of the scope, it's much easier to just have it be, you go, like your in-between battles is limbo, and then you'll just say, move on to next battle, and that will be your continuation. You might have stuff like the opposing person, or like we just have a little dialogue, doing some snippets of just back and forth, and then we go into the fight, and that would be about it.
You said as you increase your defense, you get slower, right?
So as you increase defense, you don't necessarily get slower. It is if you pick like the armor stat, because the armor would weigh down your Eidolon, you would take a small penalty to speed, and you would also, if it's possible, and then you would also have the inability to get the wings adaptation if it was available for the farm.
So it's more like a perk.
Kind of, yeah. Yes.
So, with this, so if you win one battle, does that eliminate them from their state of depression?
So the only way currently that I think eliminating them from their state of depression would work is by hitting the next evolution point. But that could always be changed to if you get back into the positives, they're out of depression. If you get above a certain number in favor, they're out of depression. But it can change depending on what design team decides.
What's the end goal of this game?
So the end goal is basically just to create the perfect, I guess at this point, the perfect slime, which would just mean to reach the end of a tree and then like the god, or like the god of all slimes.
Okay.
So the game is essentially a battle screen limbo, and it repeats that cycle until you get to the end of the evolution.
Pretty much.
Okay. That's my question.
Anything else? Yeah.
Do the enemies get any more difficult? Or is it just the same?
I think if it's possible for the AI to ramp up, it would be. They would also have access to like higher tier moves, which could do more damage, or give them bigger buffs, stuff like that.
But then if your slime dies, would those enemies reset to the beginning?
Everything would reset basically, yeah.
So like, unlike Pokemon, you only have
You
one.
have one thing.
Okay.
And then you would have like Pokemon don't have the active ability to decide what goes on there. So in this one, we would be able to decide what this evolution looks like, what abilities it would have because of the evolutions.
So does this game have like a type affecting this to it? Like slimes are good against humans, humans are good against whatever.
If we can make body types, even then I didn't think of like type effectiveness since that's a lot to code in. But I think, I mean from the art standpoint now, I think maybe it would be slimes, maybe it would be like 2 body types, but that kind of thing.
So this kind of like that?
I mean, the plot would kind of be like you get dumped in and they're like, hey, get to this point, and then maybe like at the midpoint we get a little bit of a plot. We get like plot slowly expands as you keep fighting, as it keeps leveling. Maybe your Eidolon talks to you. There's a lot of things we could do. Like there's a lot of things we could do through Limbo. Any other questions?
Would attack animations be like Pokemon or?
It would be kind of like Pokemon, wherein the Eidolon itself would kind of shimmy, and then we have like maybe just like a few, like the grass, like a razor root would just be like a few green pixels kind of splash in its face. That kind of thing. Anything else?
What was it? For questions?